Thanks for chatting with me today, Wendy. Let's get started with this first question, which is what strategies can team members use to manage burnout?
Great question, Samantha. Burnout is here, it's real, but with a pandemic, it is even a larger problem. People have had their homes turned over with a different type of dynamic going on. Parents have children Zooming at home. Many of you now have your spouse or partner working from home too. And so it's created a much more hectic situation from working from home. And so taking something like the pandemic, which we can't control, and putting into our hands items that we can control and help for burnout, things such as the basics, such as getting good night's sleep, eating well, and exercising. Those are the three things that I know we can control. And if we keep top of mind, it really can help burnout. I always like to get movement. And if the weather is appropriate, get outside, get fresh air, go on a walk. It helps immensely. It's so easy, I think, in this time to roll out of bed and go straight to your office or your computer and just work all day. And that's not healthy for us. That fresh air, that movement, that eating well, will really help curb the burnout feel and prevent burnout. But we have to be disciplined. And it's so much easier sometimes not to be disciplined and instead to dive into work, but really taking care of ourselves, our well being and self care is super important.
Yeah, I think it's so great to highlight the things that we can control because personally, when I think about burnout, it's a feeling of losing control. And so
Mhm.
focusing on those aspect of our lives, regardless of if we're living through a COVID pandemic or not, focusing on those things that we can control is such a practical way to get ahead of those out of control feelings that come along with burnout.
Yes, it's such a good point, Samantha. And things like calling up a friend and laughing,
Mhm.
watching a comedy show. These items are so good for the soul and really help us. But it's relying on us to be disciplined, and sometimes that's not so easy. It's sometimes easier to eat junk food, right? But
Mhm.
the longer term, is that going to make us feel better? Well, maybe every once in a while,
Right,
yeah, for
right,
sure,
right.
right? A big
Maybe
greasy
not long
burger makes
term.
you good,
Yeah.
but all the time, that's not helpful. And so being disciplined, trying to get in bed. I know myself sometimes with this pandemic, I feel like, oh, I'm more tired than used to be. And it's just the stress of the pandemic and not recognizing that. And so being good to yourself and really trying to follow, what the doctor's orders usually always are.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So, something that I've heard team members talk about and that I wanted to ask you is we have a fantastic paid time off policy at GitLab. And I think that myself, I felt this way, and others, I think, as well, have felt challenges in how they take time off. And so I'm
Mhm.
wondering if you can take a second to speak to managers to share some strategies about how managers can support their team members in taking time off from work.
Yes. So taking time off for work is so important. I think we heard from the author, John, was it Fitch, that wrote
Mhm.
Time
Sounds
Off,
good.
the book?
Mhm.
And he had such a calm demeanor and talked about the importance of having those breaks, those mental and physical breaks, and how it helps then productivity be higher. And so the outcome is better and beneficial for
Mhm.
not only the individual or team member, but for the overall organization. And so I really think about it starting with expectations. So having that conversation with your manager of, hey, I'm thinking of I'm going to take some time off X, Y, and Z. And I think that this person could be my backup, and having that dialogue, and ensuring that that works for the manager, ensuring that works for the person that's going to be backup. and then going out and understanding if you're completely out, great. Or if there's a caveat, manager may say, hey, awesome, I really want you to go out, but there's this one project that if there's a 911 or an emergency call, we might need to reach out to you. And being aware and open to the expectations will make for a much more enjoyable vacation, and everyone is aligned. And so I really think that it's just having that dialogue and setting expectations. If you're feeling like, oh, I just need to go, I need to go tomorrow, and I'm going to be gone for a week, well, that puts the business in a tough spot, right? We all have a lot on our plates, and so we need to be sure that someone else is picking up that work. And so I really think it's just having that dialogue
Mhm.
and working with your manager to be able to get the time off. And then again, being disciplined. If your manager isn't expecting you to be available, you've made it clear I'm not, and managers online, then don't be going and
Don't check.
getting online.
Yeah.
That's hurting yourself, right? So you got to live up to what you say you'll do as
Right.
well.
I think something you said at the beginning too about framing time off as something that yields results aligns really well with our value of results. Um, because I think too often we think that taking time off might be a sign of weakness. But if we can reframe it as, no, taking this time off is caring for you so that you can be a better team member when you are here, I think
Yes.
is a really great way to frame it.
And with the pandemic and burnout being a much more reality, or higher percentage of people having burnout, it's that much more important to be sure you're still taking your time off. It's
Right.
easy to say, well, I can't get on a plane, I can't travel, I can't do my usual plans that
Mhm.
I would do, but have a staycation, clean out your closet,
Yeah.
go. If you live on a coast, go to the beach, go to the mountains, get that break
Mhm.
and that you can do, hopefully, in a short car ride distance, because it's even more important now, I would say,
Yeah.
than it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah, completely agree. So I think that that kind of segues well into this third question. So we just talked about how managers can support their team members in taking time off. I'm wondering if we can maybe get a little bit more specific and talk about how managers can help their team members prevent burnout in ways that they can provide preemptive support to encourage their team members not to get to that final phase of burnout.
Yes. And here at GitLab, I think we're so fortunate in that we have a remote culture. We know what goes along with a remote culture. And the only new piece, and I shouldn't say only because it's a big one, but the new piece for us is COVID and this pandemic, where many other organizations, they're dealing with the newness of remote and the pandemic, which is
Mhm.
much more chaotic and much more difficult for people to navigate through. So it really goes down to continuing with your one-to-ones. We do a great job of having managers and team members have their one-to-ones, continuing with those, setting realistic expectations. So checking in with your folks. How are you doing? What's going well? What's not? Anything personally that I can help you with? And then being clear with expectations and deadlines. I think it works really well here at GitLab, how we have our Google Doc and our Zoom. And so we're in the Google Doc writing and vocalizing expectations. And so if for some reason you're not clear, you can go back to your Google Doc
Mhm.
and read that and get clarity with your manager. But frequent communication, continuously having autonomy. We lead with our organization being very self-driven. And so continuing with that, continuing with our check-ins and one-to-ones, recognizing team members. We have our thanks Slack channel. Continuing to use that is super important, and other ways to recognize team members. And then looking at what kind of intentional development may be helpful for a team member, or what's a team member's interest. And
Mhm.
maybe we can carve out time to ensure that we help the team member get that area of development, or work towards a plan to have that area of development. It could be an area that the team member is really excited about, and it's a nice break from the day to day for them,
Mhm.
and to work on personal development.
Yeah, I love that. Thinking about learning as a strategy for preventing burnout. I think that when you're learning something new and something that you're excited about, you are at this level of engagement where you are excited and invested. And it's a really great way to break up your day if you're feeling overwhelmed or not so excited about a project that you're working on that needs to be done. Being able to take time to learn, to switch your mindset about the work that you're doing. That's really,
Yes.
thank you for bringing that up. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Mindset is it's one that we all have to remind ourselves of daily. And
Mhm.
in COVID, probably multiple times a day.
Right.
I know for
Uh-huh.
myself, I have to remind myself of that too. And sometimes turn off the news, and
Mhm.
change my mindset. So
That's
it's super super important.
great. Well, thank you so much, Wendy. This was awesome.
Oh, well, yeah,
I
I'm
really
happy
appreciate
to
you
spend the
taking.
time with you this morning.
Yeah,
Awesome.
great.